of Dumbo. Get your book and turn to page 1. It was spring in the circus. Everyone was singing. Everyone was happy. Happiest of all was Mrs. Jumbo, for in her stall in the circus train was a chubby, brand-new baby elephant. Though the other animals called the baby Dumbo, his mother loved him dearly, even though his ears was big. Turn the page. All aboard, shouted the ringmaster. After a long winter's rest, it was time to set out again to the open road. Toot, toot, whistled Casey Jones, the locomotive of the circus train. With a jiggly-jerk and a quick, brisk puff, puff, off sped Casey Jones. Turn the page. It was dark when Casey Jones whistled and puffed into the station. Rain poured down hard, but the circus began to unload. The workmen jumped down from the train. They lighted torches and stuck them in the ground. Men and animals came busting out of the train on the windy, wet night. They all helped the circus put up the circus tent. Even Mrs. Jumbo's baby helped. Turn the page. By morning the rain had stopped and the tents was all set up and the circus was busy getting ready for the big parade. The band played. Everyone fell in line. Then off pranced the gay procession down the main street. There was creamy white horses, licorice-colored seals. There was a lady acrobat in pink tights. Lions paced in their gilded cages. Elephants marched with the slow, even steps. The crowd on the sidewalk cheered. Then suddenly their eyes opened. They craned their neck. Look, look, they cried. Look at that silly animal with the draggy ears. He can't be an elephant. He must be a clown. They burst into loud laughter. Sadly, Dumbo toddled behind his mother with his trunk clasped to her tail. He tried to hurry faster so he wouldn't hear the laughter, but he stumbled and tripped over his ears. Down he splashed in the mud. Now the crowd laughed even louder. Mrs. Jumbo scolded at them. She picked Dumbo up and carried him in the trunk the rest of the way. When the parade finally came back to the tent, Mrs. Jumbo put Dumbo in his wooden tub, and as she scrubbed, she whispered soft words to him. A gang of nosy boys came pushing in first for the first. Turn the page. Afternoon show. We want to see the baby elephant, they yelled. The one with the sailboat ears. Look here, there he is. A boy grabbed one of Dumbo's ears and pulled it hard. He made an ugly face and stuck out his tongue. Mrs. Dumbo couldn't stand it. She snatched the boy up with her trunk and dropped him across the rope and spanked him hard. Help, 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 he cried. What's going on? Cried the ringmaster and snapped his whip at Mrs. Jumbo. Tie her down, he yelled. Mrs. Jumbo reared on her hind legs, but soon she was behind bars in a prison wagon with a big sign that said, Danger, mad elephant, keep out. The next day they made Dumbo into a clown. They painted his face with a foolish grin and dressed him in a baby's dress, put a bonnet on his head. They used him in the most ridiculous acts in the show, a make-believe fire. He had to jump from the top of a blazing cardboard house into a farmer's net. The audience thought it was a great joke, but Dumbo felt disgraced. He's a disgrace to us, the big animals agreed, and turned their back on him. Hidden in a pile of hay was Timmy the mouse, the smallest animal in the circus. They can't treat that little fellow that way, he murmured. Not while Timmy Mouse is around. Hey there, little fella, he called to Dumbo. Don't be afraid. I'm your friend. I want to help you. Say, he went on staring at Dumbo's ears, those ears are goodness wings. I'll teach you to fly. Turn the page. Quietly, Dumbo and Timmy slipped out of the tent. Dumbo told her all about the clown act and how unhappy he was without her, and about the wonderful idea Timmy had for making him a success. Then sadly they said good night, and Timmy and Dumbo continued on their way. With Timmy as a teacher, Dumbo practiced running and jumping and hopping and Tried slow and fast. Okay, turn the page. Takeoffs and standing and running jumps. He stretched out his wings and he flopped them. 1, 2, 3. Then he tried the whole thing again, all together. But it was hard as he tried. Dumbo could not leave the ground. At last, almost too tired to stand, the two friends gave up and started gloomily back toward the sleeping circus. Don't worry, Dumbo, Timmy whispered as he curled up in Dumbo's hat brim for a good night's sleep. We'll have you flying yet. When the morning sun rose, Timmy was fast asleep. He blinked and looked up. Just above him was 4 old crows sitting staring at him. Why, yawned Timmy, rubbing his eyes. Where am I? You're up in the tree, snapped the old crow crossly. That's where you're at. Tree, guessed Timmy. He looked around. Sure enough, here he was, sitting on a branch. He and Dumbo was up in the tree. The ground was far, far below. But how did I get here? He stammered. How, crackered the crows. You and that elephant just came flying up. Flying, yelled Timmy. Dumbo, wake up, Dumbo. We're up in the tree. You flew up here. Slowly, Dumbo opened his eyes. He glanced down and glummed, then he staggered to his feet. But suddenly he slipped on the tree bark and fell, down, down, down. He bounced from branch to branch, and Timmy clinging to his trunk. Plump! They landed in a shallow pond just under the tree. The crows crackled and called from above. Timmy scrambled up out of the water and wrung out Dumbo's tail. Dumbo, he paned. You can fly. You can fly when you're asleep. You can fly when you're awake. Turn the page. Your ears, Dumbo, they're your fortune. He grabbed one of Dumbo's wet ears and patted it. You don't want to be a clown anymore. You'll be famous. The only flying elephant in the whole world. And Timmy and Dumbo began all over again to practice flying. But it wasn't easy. Time after time, Dumbo tried to take off. Time after time, he sprawled out on his face. Soon the crows began to feel sorry for the little fellow. When Timmy told them all about the sad things that had happened to Dumbo because of his big ears, they flew down and offered help. One of the crows took Timmy aside. Flying's just like swimming, he whispered. It's just a matter of, turn the page, believing that you can do it. He turned and snatched a long black feather from his tail. Here, take this. Tell the baby elephant it's a magic feather. Tell him if he holds it, he can fly. The boss crow winked and flew off. Timmy handed Dumbo the feather and scurried up his trunk to the brim of his hat and held his breath. The trick worked like its charm. The very instant that Dumbo wrapped the tip of his trunk around that feather, flap, flap, flap went his ears. Up in the air, he soared like a bird. Over the tallest treetops, he sailed, he glided, he dipped, he dived. 3 times he circled over the head of the cheering crowd. Then he headed back to the circus ground. Turn the page. Timmy shouted, "We must keep your flying a secret, a surprise for your acting your afternoon shows." No one noticed Dumbo when him and Timmy came quite to back. It was already time for Dumbo to get in his costume. Inside the wall of the cardboard house, he had to wait all through the show until the fire crackled around him. At last, Timmy leaned down and handed him the feather. Crack, crack, crack went the fire. The clown act was on. Flames shot up out of the cardboard house. Clang, clang, clang roared the clown's fire engine, rushing toward the blaze. From the far end of the ring, a red-headed mother clown came running. "Save my baby," she screamed. "He's on the top floor." Turn the page. The fireman brought a big net and helped out. "Jump, jump, my darling baby, jump," the clown mother screeched. Dumbo jumped, but as he jumped, the black feather slipped from his trunk and floated away. Now his magic was gone, and Dumbo plunged down like a stone. Timmy saw the feather go. "The feather's a fake," he shouted frantically to Dumbo. "You can fly." Dumbo heard the shouts and doubtless spread his ears wider. Not 2 feet above the net, he stopped his plunge and swooped up into the air. A mighty gasp rose from the audience. They knew Excuse me. They knew it couldn't be, but it was Dumbo. He was flying. While the crowd roared in delight, Dumbo did power dives, loop spins, and barrel rolls. He swooped down, picked up peanuts, and squirted a trunk full of water on Mother Clam. The keeper freed Mrs. Jumbo and brought her to the tent in triumph to see her baby fly. So all the Dumbo's worries had come to an end. By evening, Dumbo was a hero coast to coast. Timmy became his manager and saw to it that Dumbo got a wonderful contract with a big salary and a pension for his mother. And the circus was renamed Dumbo's Flying Circus. And Dumbo turned the page. And Dumbo traveled in a special streamlined car. But best of all, he forgave everyone who had been unkind to him, for his heart was as big as his ears.